Okay, hello. I believe we are live. Just going to wait a second, make sure it shows up on the site, and then we will get started. So, internet is lagging behind a little bit. Still haven't seen it pop up yet. Okay, there we go. Okay, hello. That's a pretty decent. I believe we are live. Delay. Anyway, all right. Hello, welcome. CG Cookie citizens, thanks for being here today. It's Tuesday, which is becoming our Blender stream day at 2 o'clock. That's pretty much standard at this point. So be looking for that week to week. Today we're going to start a new genre. Oh, by the way, I'm Kent Trammell, and this is Lampel with me.
Hello.
Maybe this way. And yeah, so we're going to be your co-host, sorry. I'm going to be your host. Lampel is the co-host for today. And we are going to be starting a new genre of live stream, which is the Blender film reviews. So if you are unaware, Blender is used often to make short films for all over the place. People use it, obviously, because it's free and accessible. But also the Blender Foundation is pretty famous at this point for making short films. And we're going to look at them. So we love them. I'm sure you guys love them. We get excited for the next one that comes out. And it's also really exciting just to see how that's grown the studio, what it does for Blender development. Also, just the artists that it's bringing in, the quality always ramping up around this thing of Blender that we know and love. So we're just gonna talk about that in the live stream. We're going to look at it in a few categories, trying to structure a good discussion around it, and we're going to see if that's good for you. Hopefully, we are Blender artists, of course, so we're going to be looking at the film through those lenses heavily in terms of Blender. But we're also going to look at it a couple other ways, just in terms of a film and how to, give our best attempt at being a film critic in the best sense, in the positive sense. So, today we're looking at the Daily Dweebs, which is the latest short that's come out of the Blender Animation Studio, I believe is actually what it's called now, a branch of the Blender Foundation. And yeah, so since that's the new hot thing, figured we'd talk about it. Also, it's very short, like as in 60 seconds short. And it's going to be a good way to start this format, kind of ease into it. So I want to encourage you, if you see things, like when we talk about these categories, if you spot things about the story or got something out of the story or the artistry or the technical side, please share that in the chat. We would love to be informed from you as well, and just kind of enjoy this experience of talking about these films together.
Yeah.
So
this is definitely more of like a casual conversation between us, and so definitely contribute in the chat.
Yes.
We're not trying to nitpick everything. We're just having fun and enjoying it. And, also, Mikhail, really quickly, he said, how did you make emojis? On Windows, if you hit the Windows key and the semicolon, it'll pop up right there.
Oh.
Fun fact.
I'm hitting Control Command Spacebar. That's interesting.
Okay. And also, Giorgio says, I'm excited since animation is my goal. So that's awesome. Things
Perfect.
like this kind of help us get excited about it and see
absolutely.
What's possible.
Definitely inspirational. Awesome. Okay, so let me talk about the three categories that we've discussed to guide our review, so to speak. Review is maybe even not the right word, but whatever. The first one is going to be story. And this, to me, it represents the narrative or the plot of the film, things like character development, maybe meaning or the interpretation of meaning. I know for myself, this is probably the primary thing that I love about film, because I think it informs every other aspect. It informs sound design or the technical stuff, which you actually do in Blender in terms of computer graphics, short films. And so I get a big kick out of story. I love talking about it, love going back and forth, bouncing possible meanings back and forth. So that's one element that we'd like to talk about. And after that is the artistry, which to me, I kind of define as the film's identity. Is it recognizable in terms of you take all the different aspects and combine it? Do you recognize that as a specific film, or in the negative sense, does it copy other things that make it a mishmash and doesn't really have an identity? Or, the visual style, is it something that you can that you remember that sticks out to you as being unique or definitive. And then also like the appeal, like how do you look at the film in terms of appeal? Was it appealing? Was it not to you, and why? Those kind of things we're kind of lumping into the artistry category, trying to understand the expressiveness of the filmmakers. So these are the two not explicitly Blender categories, but they're important to film in general, and they also inform the next category, which is technical execution. This is where we nerd out about Blender stuff and look at the film with a magnifying glass in terms of what's the quality of animation, what's the modeling like, the shading, lighting, all that good stuff, simulation if it's there. This is where we get to nerd out and also be inspired, because a lot of films are very good and they inspire us with their technical abilities. So with those described, Lampel, do you have any other ideas about those categories that you want to express, or if not, I don't expect it.
No, I think you covered the intro, and we can go ahead and dig into it.
Sounds great. Awesome, man. All right, well, then we are going to start, since this film is so short, a lot of these are not shorts, but this one is, and we're going to play it maybe twice, and then start talking about it. So let me turn me and Lampel off and watch it.
Aw, Dixie. Here you go, sweetie. Have a good day.
All right, so we'll just do it the one time and then talk about it. We can watch it again if we need to. But so that's the whole film, just a minute, and we'll start
super short. There's a lot packed in there.
Yeah, definitely a lot, and we'll start over with the beginning, the story aspect. But let's see, maybe a little bit of kind of generalizing the short first. Based on what I understand of the film, everything that happened in Blender was basically due to Hjalti and Andy at the Blender Foundation, if I'm not mistaken. They did everything that you see in Blender. Do you understand that to be the same way, Lampel?
Yeah, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, based on the credits, it looks like, which to me is very impressive as like showcasing the work that two talented artists can do. Pretty impressive. So that's kind of what we understand. I get a little bit of the impression that maybe it was kind of a harebrained idea that Hjalti had, and they had a gap in their schedule, and they're like, well, let's make it happen after Agent 327, which is pretty cool. I'm maybe filling in gaps incorrectly there, but that's kind of the impression that I get off of the short. So first category, story. Now we want to apply this to all shorts, and this one in particular being so short, maybe doesn't have a tremendous story, and it was likely never designed to be that way, but it is a very cute, fun snippet of a story that I kind of interpret as being the canvas on which to paint more technical abilities, like art or artistic abilities, like animation quality, or showcasing Blender's ability to create visual things, lighting and rendering and stuff like that. And in that situation, the story being simple and very digestible, very happy, like it works very, very well for that purpose. So yeah, I guess
as well as a story, it kind of creates a world, or like opens up a little window into this alternate universe.
Yeah.
That's
totally.
Pretty well.
Yeah, absolutely. The fact that everything to me looks fairly real world, except for the Dweebs character itself. Like it seems to resemble a dog in behavior and sound, I guess, but it's got a weird laugh that's not very dog-like.
But what does it even look like? Like it looks more similar to a giraffe than.
Good point.
Dog. So like the fact that he was able to actually make it feel so clearly like a dog is super impressive. But I guess that's more on the technical side.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. But we had someone in the chat, Zach Zellman say the creature in the short looks like Flubber and Beaker from the Muppets, like they had a baby, which absolutely, that is very true. And so, yeah, I guess if I were to dive deep, and I tend to do that when it comes to a movie, like really trying to glean something to take away. So maybe also
real life lessons here.
Say that again?
Some real life lessons here.
I mean, it might sound silly, but I do tend to fall into that category where I want like a story to be an expression, so I know something more about the storyteller, and it also like connects me with something about life that I maybe didn't understand as well before. I definitely look for that stuff in stories. Some people have, accused me of maybe digging too far, but I don't know. I like that exercise, and here it really, going on the dog theme, I really got some fun expressions of like key dog qualities, I guess, like which dogs to me represent pure sincerity. Like there's no doubt about what that dog is feeling. It's whatever instinct right then and there. If he's happy or he or she is sad, like it's very exaggerated, that emotion, and it comes out very, very big. And you see that in the character, and in that way, even though like in the story, so it starts out in the dog or the dweeb. Is that what it's called? Is it dweeb? Oh, it's Dixie. I'm sorry, it has a name. Dixie is the name of the dog character, and it starts eating. It's very happy, but it smacks the chicken away when it takes one of the food bits. And like when I first saw it, it's like, good Lord, that's straight violent, ratchet up to 10 right away. But then like it's a dog, and it's there's an innocent element to the fact that the dog, it's just the instinct, like right away. That's what it acts upon. So even though it's super violent, I don't know, there's something endearing about the dog being pure sincerity, and then likewise, when it starts licking the bigger chicken, the chicken all of a sudden seems not mad at it, and it's like, oh gosh, I better run from this dog that's going to lick me. So I don't know, I got this interesting short snippet of expression of like what a dog is like, and I love dogs, and so I found that kind of fun. What do you think, Lampel? Am I reaching too far for that one?
No, I don't think that's too far. I like that because I don't know. The first time I watch something, I don't really digest the story very well. I just kind of like see what's in front of me. Mm-hmm. I have to watch something a couple times in order to actually, I don't know, get it a little bit. Mm-hmm. So the first time I watched it, I was like, I don't know, I was not identifying with the dog, but like that's the character I was sort of rooting for, I guess.
Right.
And then the second time I watched it, I was like, I don't feel bad for this guy at all because he just hunted a chicken and that was just like being cute, and then spit all over this other guy. Like, why should I feel for this little weird creature? And then after that, like once you mentioned that he's just like so like purely simple, just doing whatever is in the moment, is kind of makes him endearing again. I don't know, it's weird.
Oh, absolutely, man. I've watched this short probably. Oh, sorry, I interrupted that last part. What'd you say?
Oh no, I just said he's such an odd little character. Yeah,
very, very lovable. That was my arc too when I was watching it. It's like started, oh, I love this guy, very sincere or whatever, and then the first initial hit did throw me. I was like, okay, maybe I'm not rooting for him 100%, and so like it kind of went down, and then the more I watched
it, I noticed that at first I thought, oh, maybe he was trying to get that one piece back, and he wanted all the food, not just most of it.
True.
Maybe he's greedy. But then I realized that once he hits the little chicken, he doesn't go for the other piece. He just forgets about him completely. Like it was literally just to hit the chicken. Like there's no...
That's
he didn't
hilarious.
want the food. It was just to be a dick. So I don't know.
I didn't realize that he didn't go for the food after that. Just pure protection. Because, I mean, technically there was a crime committed against the guy. Like his food was stolen.
Yeah.
But
so that's a guess.
Right. It probably wasn't until the 10th or 15th time watching this. I've watched it a lot since it's so short, that I kind of started to feel a little more like, oh, this is kind of dog, like innocent. pure sincerity and instinctual nature made me kind of root for him again. But there's not really a bad guy, I guess, in the narrative.
Right.
We've got some comments
sure.
in the. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that. Giorgio said, I think it goes back to the pure instinct idea, where the character does not need you to root for him, but invest emotionally in it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of a cool point, where like the character doesn't really need you to root for him because he's just being him.
True.
Doesn't need
yeah, that's an
need your
interesting
help.
point. I like that point. Yeah. It's very dog-like from Mark Smith. It's very dog-like in that the first bite is so greedy, and then when the chicken gets one small piece, given, I think, dog-like that kind of exaggerating the reaction to a small, like, thing that caused the reaction or whatever. Yeah, that's a good point, too.
Ooh, here if you want to overread it. So it's like, we said, like, he gets so greedy when the chicken gets one small piece.
Mm-hmm.
And since it doesn't actually go after the small piece, he's less concerned about, like, him not having it than he is mad that the chicken has it in the first place.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you want a life lesson, that's pretty good.
I love this about film. Like, I totally buy into that stuff. Like, I mean, I don't know Yalsti for sure, but the amount of time that he had to spend into this, certainly he was thinking of things to inform. I think those kind of decisions, storytelling elements, inform like the behavior, like not taking the piece of the food. I think that's a key part. But he could be watching this eventually and laugh like, I didn't mean any of that. But
yeah. Well, Gonzo asked earlier how long it took to create, and it looks like it was about 11 weeks.
That's insane.
And yeah, you can't animate something for 11 weeks and not put yourself in there a little bit.
Oh, exactly. Otherwise, like, that's what I think a gift of an animator is, and we're getting maybe somewhat into the technical stuff, but your animation would be so dull if you didn't have these kind of thought processes guiding those decisions. Like, and when we get to there's a couple elements in the animation that where he could have done like one small reaction, he does like, or one big reaction, he does like two separate ones to make up the bigger. And like that to me represents the thought process that you see expressed from an animator. But so yeah, I think it's fair to postulate that he was thinking these kind of things when he was animating and directing it. But let's see, there was something funny that Phil said. Oh, he says life lesson: the 10-second food rule is real, even if it lands on a chicken. I think that's a fair point to make. Yeah. All right, let's go on to the next one. Go ahead. What'd you say?
It looked like a pretty clean chicken. I don't think he was.
True. Yeah. So. Yeah. I mean, granted, when I saw him lick it off, I immediately went back to memories of like my kid eating stuff off the ground that had fallen out of his mouth, or just gave me a gross feeling. But maybe it was clean. We'll say that. All right. So then let's see. I skipped one. Artistry is the next one, and. I hope it makes sense to you guys what I'm talking about with the artistry, the identifiability of the short itself. Like if you think through some of your favorite movies, I hope that you agree with me that they have a certain feel to them. You can tell that either this director made the movie just by the way it was edited, or the way that it was cut, or the content in it, or this was a Disney movie because you can just tell by the way that eyes are shaped, or the certain story elements running through it. That's what I mean by like artistry and the identity of the film. And I think this has one. I think that this looks different than any other Blender Foundation short that I recall. So just in simple ways, like the lighting or the stylistic nature, the character that we've talked about a lot, how it's kind of bulbous and what's the amorphous? Is that amorphous blob in nature? So like I can't recall anything being quite like that. Am I forgetting something, Lampel? Can you think of another short that looks like this from Blender Foundation?
Not really. The first time I saw it, it reminded me of, I think, the director of this is embarrassing. Now I can't remember the one with the sheep.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
The director of that had a old series of these little like tiny creatures with like bug eyes that just got brutally smashed around. That was really entertaining, but that's like the first thing that it reminded me of.
What was that called? It was like BPOs or something. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
But like that's the only thing that it kind of reminded me of. But other than that,
yeah, totally. I see what you mean.
Don't like anything else.
Right. So in terms of like a big picture, I think this one does absolutely have an identity, and I think this is going to be a series. I would hope so, sort of like Caminandes. Also, kind of maybe a brand, even like if we want to make it or describe it in corporate terms. That's also goes into the artistry for me, and I see a brand. I see the Daily Dweebs brand and the identity going forward with several episodes. I think they took effort into making that happen, so I'm trying to think of any
Definitely
other
a remarkable character too.
Yeah,
like, even though he's just a blob, like if you see that shape, like you know what it is.
True.
Like, oh, it's that guy.
Yeah, and you've seen Yalti has already printed out some 3D prints of it, and he's already starting to be recognized. And so it's pretty cool to see that happen, and in such a short amount of time too. So also with the artistry, I've met Yalti. I spent a weekend with him at SIGGRAPH, and we would like call on the phone and talk for we've done that a few times, and so we've become friends. And to me, this absolutely represents an expression of his personality. He's so funny, and hopefully you've seen the live stream where Lampel and Wayne, the three of them, talked, and I see this character being the quirky, wacky like design. Oh yeah, absolutely an expression of Yalti, and in the best kind of way, and the bright colors. I don't know. It makes me think of the memory. He loves licorice, I think is that what it is? It's like Icelandic licorice, and if I'm honest, it's one of the most painful things I've ever put in my mouth, but he loves it, and I don't know, I just associate him with this kind of candy, quirky candy, and like that's the short is like a visual quirky candy to me. And anyway, so I think there's a big part of the artistry driven by Yalti also being the director, which is cool to see. I'm excited to see more of these episodes. Do you have anything more on the... with that, we've already kind of said that the appeal, I think there's absolutely an appealing part of this. We kind of addressed that already with the character design and stuff like that. So
yeah. I mean, Giorgio said that he'd buy some clothes with Dweebs on it.
Absolutely.
And, MacDad reminded us that the other short was Babioles.
That's right. That is what it's called. Yep.
But yeah, with the artistry, actually the whole background and visual, I guess shading and rendering did remind me a lot of Cosmos Laundromat.
Yeah.
Just the way that it was lit and
right.
The backyard.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
I'm trying to
a little bit of a similar style.
Right.
The colors and stuff.
True. That's a good point. In my memory, I haven't seen Cosmos Laundromat in a little while, but it was a little more moody, I would say, in terms of the lighting, kind of overcast and sunsetty, but in like a more, because I mean, it was a fairly heavy short, I guess.
But different mood, but similar style, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah, it kind of goes into, I see the Blender Foundation as coming into its own, sort of like Disney does. Little Mermaid looks very different from Beauty and the Beast, but you can see elements that say this came from the same studio or the same group of artists, but they also have their own identities.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with you in that sense. There's a softness to the visuals in this short that Cosmos also had, in my opinion.
That's what it is, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Well, then this will get us maybe to some of the fun parts if you're here for mostly Blender discussions, the technical execution. And we can talk a lot about this one. For this, I suppose I'm going to... let's see. I'm going to load up Blender because
While you're loading,
yeah, go ahead.
You're loading it. Ben mentioned that it was salt licorice, probably, and that could be it. Because I have not met many people that like it, but I really like salt licorice as well. Because my grandparents are super German, and they would always send me some. So I like it, but I never have to worry about people stealing it because everybody hates it. That's so funny.
That sounds like mayonnaise with me and my wife. If I put mayonnaise on the sandwich, it's all mine. No question.
Mayonnaise.
So they're super German. I like that adjective. Not just a little German. Super.
Yeah. Super German.
Cool. All right. Let's So I'm going to scrub through here and let's see. Maybe I wonder if I can just play it. Sorry, at last minute I threw this into the sequence editor, and I probably need to. There we go. It's not going to run perfectly smooth, but kind of step our way through the film. Okay, one of the first things I wanted to talk about as being like a modeler and a prop, like professionally doing a lot of props, is I want to focus on the background, because I'm sure no one, if you're watching the film, no one's caring about the background. A successful background will be ignored because it's just assumed that it makes sense and you can focus where you need to focus. But there's a lot going on in the background, in my opinion, from the swinging of the little swings over here. Might not see it in this kind of slow-mo thing, but they're slightly moving the... oops, got to increase my timeline. Quick, Lampel, what's the math of 60 seconds times 24?
Oh gosh, I don't know, man. It's in a calculator.
I don't do math that well either. Okay, cool. We'll zoom out.
You can tell how much I do animation by not knowing that. It's such a simple one. It's literally 1,440.
1,400. Oh, I said 1,500. That's not bad.
Yeah.
Not a bad guess.
No.
All right, like so we also have the grass. For some reason, that stuck out to me as I'm assuming Andy probably handled most of the like shading, rendering, lighting, and maybe prop modeling and stuff like that. The grass looks awesome. It's very blurred because of the depth of field, but he didn't just throw a typical particle emitter on it and just let it render hair. Like, he added bald spots, he added little flower weed like things you can see from the different specks in here. And I want to recognize that, because that can be so easily overlooked. And when it's done well, I just hats off to you taking pride in that kind of work. And there's also chickens animated running around in the back. Just pretty cool background. I think you did a really good job with that. Something that's easily overlooked, but takes a lot of effort. And
it's interesting.
Yeah,
I was looking at the earlier versions of this online. It had like pictures from the Blender cloud of like a couple different shots.
Oh, right, yeah.
Ended up, and the background actually changed pretty dramatically in terms of like what was actually there.
Oh, wow.
I go back and look.
Yeah, maybe we can take a look.
Yeah, there was like a tree with like a tire swing and like a path and all that stuff.
Right.
So yeah, it's changed quite a bit. So it's definitely intentional.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just like, hey, we need something in the background, let's just put this in.
Right.
It's really setting the scene, but also in a way that's not distracting from the characters.
Good call.
So I think originally it was a little bit distracting.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, totally. Like, the swings are subtle enough that it just breathes more life into the scene, but it's not distracting your focus. I can imagine a tire swing maybe being a little too magnetically focusable.
And the way everything is set up now, it's like it perfectly like frames the shot. Mm-hmm. So all of the attention kind of like being drawn inward, and it just kind of, has things off to the side.
Mm-hmm.
Or I think some of the original ones, there was stuff a little bit in the middle, a little bit more going on.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas now they're just sort of on that blank canvas.
Right. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, good call. So we got Phil saying, there's an S curve in the neck on Dixie, and yeah, that's a very classic like animation idea, is like S curves rather than straight things, and yeah, it gives him this, I don't know, kind of like very relaxed kind of feel as he chews on the candy, I think it's candy. It looks like some sort of Lucky Charms or something. But let's see, where is my playhead? There we go.
It makes me like feel something in my neck too, just watching him and thinking about him like swallowing like through that like. Just
that's funny.
Me, I don't know, like a clump in my neck, like. Ugh.
Yeah, totally. A small detail to me going along with the whole neck and stuff is the fact that the food changes size both times that he opens the mouth. Maybe that's simple, but I think that's such a nice little touch. And then where is the other part? Yeah.
Wait, look at it again. Oh, what?
What do you?
So it was like he was actually chewing on it.
Right. It it solidifies the effect that he's chewing and it's being broken down. I think that was just a nice little touch.
Yeah, I totally missed that.
Another thing that sticks out to me in terms of like lighting is, and the style, like it feeding into the style and like artistry, the identity is like how blue the shadows are. You know, in real life during the daytime, like shadows do have a blue element because the sky is a fill light and it's blue. But here it's pushed to a pretty big extreme, and it's very appealing. Like in the whole cartoony aspect, an element of that is like pushing things to an extreme, and it's true with the shadows. And when I noticed on the tricycle in the background, look how blue that light is. Like it is super saturated, given that that's probably a regular chrome material and kind of like a mirror, so you can see pretty clearly what that light is. But in that way,
on the swing set.
Oh yeah, totally. Yep. That one, I guess is it silver or is it a little bit blue in the first place? But yeah, it's totally reading as blue, and I think that's a very cool artistic choice in terms of lighting, and it's very, very appealing sunsetty type feeling going on with the lights. Let's see. What about some other?
It gave me the impression that it was like really early in the morning, maybe.
Oh, true. Maybe it's sunrise. Yeah, that would make more sense. Getting food in the morning. The kid, for some reason, I got the impression she was dropping food off and then running to school. I don't know why I filled that gap in, but
that's what I thought too.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Oh, because she says have a good day.
Right. Okay. Yep. All the pieces are falling into place. Definitely morning. Definitively morning. Another thing that I want to point out is like, these are kind of general terms. The animation has this punchiness to it, which I've done a little bit of animation. Teaching the Pierre course, you saw kind of all I have to offer in terms of animation. And it's okay. I'm fine saying it's okay, but I always aspired and never seemed to get that really punchiness that we see in this in all the animation going on here, especially with Dixie. But in terms of like how fast he swings the head around, just has this real force to it. How he's kind of stomping his feet as he walks. Realizing the food's gone and shoving his head in there. These are happening in just a few frames, and it feels so good. There's another one, one that really stuck out to me. Where was it? Maybe it was when... I'm trying to think. Yeah, okay, I think it's when... Let's see if I can get it frame by frame. Oh, not really. But there's a part where his eyes like realize what's going on and they open in like 2 or 3 frames. And they kind of scale slightly and come back down. Anyway, it was just a small element of like a punchiness to it.
Oh yeah, where his eyelid like peels back.
Right, like that's one
frame.
frame.
Effect, but it works.
Yeah, I mean, I don't feel like I was bold enough to animate things in one frame, but that's what's happened, and it's just punchy. All of it, very appealing animation, and no one here is probably strangers to the fact that Yalfti is a very, very good animator. But anyway, love the animation quality. Some things that I notice, I love good reflections. I love noticeable reflections. So the fact that this bowl is very shiny to me, it's not just sort of shiny. I love that for some reason. I get this ceramic feel, and I'm just a sucker for good reflections. So love that choice that you can see all the animation happening throughout the entire short. You can see Dixie constantly in the reflections. I don't know why I get a big kick out of them, but I totally do. I like that choice.
It just looks good, yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to describe just beyond it looks and feels very, very good. Also with the chicken feet, I love the... it looks like a subtle bit of SSS going on. If we zoom in... And what kind of tips me off about SSS is it feels like the specular element is hovering off the surface just ever so slightly. And I think that's kind of like not a clear, but a translucent element to the shader. And this has that feel to me. So I'm pretty certain that there's subtle SSS on there. Feels really good.
I feel like there's a little bit over his entire body, maybe.
Oh, yeah, true. Very true.
Just because everything feels so soft.
Mm-hmm.
You zoomed in super far, like close to the feet.
Yeah.
Kind of looks like Twinkies. but
Totally.
that's besides.
If I was shading a Twinkie, I would totally put SSS on it. Yeah. Now we know how to shade Twinkies thanks to this. You're right. That totally looks like a Twinkie. And yeah, whatever these bits are, I thought they were feathers in a real chicken, but they're kind of just like blobby, versions of feathers. Definitely some SSS going on there. Also, we're talking about S curves while I'm thinking about it. I love the animation curve that happens as he bolts out of the scene. Oh wait, this isn't enough frames.
That was my favorite part of the entire short, is like even just watching his feet just frame by frame.
Yes, how he
slides on the floor and tries to get away.
Oh man, yeah, I'm glad you had that same reaction. But watching his tail go down and then back up, just this beautiful thing like this. Oh, I love it. But yeah, that one totally stuck out to me. It's funny. Yeah, the way he slides and stuff. I mean, it's just not easy to do that kind of thing. It looks so effortless when animation's beautiful, but man, a lot of work, 11 weeks worth of work going into that stuff. And another thing.
Giorgio asked, what's SSS?
Sorry.
Subsurface scattering. So when, instead of bouncing straight off, scatters around a little bit inside, so it looks very, very soft.
Yeah, it's like human skin has this. A lot of stuff has it in life. Cheese. Good Lord, I can look around. So many things. Yeah, so it's just a translucent element where the light doesn't stop at the surface, but it bounces around a little bit. So you I think of erasers on pencil heads for some reason had it too. But anyway, that's what.
Shader Forge, you'll see all you need to know.
True, plenty in Shader Forge. A Shader Forge course. Let's see. Another thing that I wanted to point out in terms of the animation was it stuck out to me that actually most of these characters are fairly blobby, but the main character Dixie, it could be very easy to when it comes to rigging to make it feel like a blow up animal. So if you take a blow up balloon and bend it, it usually collapses at the point of bend, and then the air kind of separates and it gets very flat, and I don't know, it's got a distinct feel when it does separate. And a lot of rigs can do that by default with default skin weights. And so this character is actually, I would say in my experience, fairly difficult to rig and keep it looking fleshy and blobby. And that was accomplished here. And I know Yalti did the animation and rigging, and so he's very competent. To me, I'm maybe he's more competent than I even realized, being able to keep it so fleshy. And with that too, as the light shifts over his body, there's some subtle bumps and how do I describe it? It's not perfectly round, but it's got a little bit of a texture. Yeah, he was formed. Totally. And some of that could be the skin, not artifacts, but the way that the skin weighting works. Regardless, there's also a pretty clear...
could also just be a little bit of texture as well.
Yeah, I mean, whether it's intentional or whether it's accidental, it contributes to the fleshiness of this character. And right here, if we zoom in, you can kind of see that there's a wrinkle that's coming about right in there. And that, to me, looks like a skinning thing, but it totally works to sell that effect. And anyway, it's not a simple thing. Fat characters, very chunky characters, much harder to rig than just skinny characters. So, hats off to the rigging. Very fleshy, very bulbous. I love it. Okay, Mark is saying in the chat, maintaining volume is not easy in 2D, much less in 3D. Absolutely true. That's a good way of describing what I was trying to say. Volume
You'll notice
preservation.
a lot in characters if you're first getting into rigging and you try to rig the elbow and stuff. You'll notice how it kind of bends and almost feels like it's snapping. It's not, doesn't keep the bones underneath.
Oh yeah, you're absolutely right. And I mean, some things I've seen some SIGGRAPH demos about updating the typical vertex weight solving that would improve that kind of thing. But currently, most of the systems work, and it ends up looking like a blow up animal.
It's interesting too how in some frames, he has sort of distinct little nubs for legs, but in other frames, they kind of like retract back in, but he like still maintains the volume.
Yeah, that's a good.
Where it's like,
that's a really good word
always
for it. Like retracting back in. That's totally what they're doing. When he's standing up on his legs, yeah, they almost disappear. Like they're just barely nubs there. Anyway, yeah, you're absolutely right. I wonder how he did that. I'm curious about the technical aspect of it. It works so well. There's one other thing about the animation that I mentioned earlier, and it's right here when the reaction happens of the big chicken takes a step onto the porch, and so the reaction is in response to that, like something just happened and it's kind of scaring me, or what's going on here. And someone like me I would just do one reaction, but if you notice, there's two built in here to the single reaction. So he steps on the porch. You can see his feet kind of, they go every which way. And then the first reaction is like, oh crap, what was that? Like something just jarred me. And then the next reaction right there is like, oh crap, it could be dangerous to me. Like his head kind of lowers. And I think that's a really, really good sign of like a good animator, because that could easily have he could have left it right here. And, it would have been fine. But like taking two reactions expresses more about this character, kind of shows the evolution of his thinking to the situation. I don't know. That stuck out to me as being a really nice touch that I just I would have overlooked and been like, hard enough doing that reaction. Let's move on. Let's keep continuing down. So.
For sure. And you can tell it's really intentional because of the blink in between.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love that. Reaction 1, reaction 2. Oh, yeah. That's just so good. You can see that back to Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Sorry, no, I interrupted you.
Oh, I was going to say, I love how you can tell it's, I don't know, super punchy even before the chicken walks on screen, because the floorboards the bowl are moving.
Uh-huh. Let's watch that. Yeah. Boom. Yeah. Boom.
Look at that.
Yeah, his footsteps they're so slow and lumbering at the top of the arc, and then at the top of each step, and they just shoot down to the floor just a couple frames. Let's see if we can get how many frames we're looking at. Yeah, like it's pretty slow, staying up top, and then 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 3 frames it's on the floor.
Yeah, and it's like between being open and just above and then completely flat is just 1 frame.
Yeah, see, I've never been able to be... That takes a boldness for some reason in animation. That's the only way I can describe it, and I've never had that. Gosh, it works so well, though. Camera shake is nice. It's good. I think I'm a big fan of Yalsti's animation, so if you can't tell, I'm kind of being a fanboy, saying everything is just amazing about it. But back to the SSS, you can see right here, even even Dixie's got it, like on the thin parts of the lips, totally getting some light traveling in there. Pretty cool. It must have been heavy on render times. I'm sure that couldn't have been fun.
Yeah, I mean, they rendered it quite high resolution, but I think this was rendered after denoising came out, or they rendered it on like earlier denoising.
Oh, well, that would have helped. Yesterday, actually, I used denoising for the first time, and pretty blown away by it. I see what all the fuss is about.
And the fact that it works on depth of field, too,
mm-hmm.
makes it so much better.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, Mark has a good point. Both the sound and the creaking of the boards, like the shaking of all that, totally sells the size of the chicken before you even see him. And I guess that would be considered like foreshadowing, or... Yeah, I guess that's what that would be called in storytelling. And yeah, just a nice touch selling that characteristic.
Yeah, because you don't even know what it is. Like maybe it's,
true.
Girl's dad coming over. Or...
Yeah, oh, absolutely. That's a good point. I've never thought of it like that. But
you don't know what it is, and you're curious. Before it even appears.
Yeah, now that we're talking about it, like that seems to be the reaction of this guy. Like he hears it and then he's like, oh crap, what is that? He doesn't even know. And then when it's a chicken, it's sort of a comedic element. It's like, oh, it's just another chicken.
That's like I've noticed that really good films or animations do that, where it's like it makes you feel the same emotion as the character, and it'd be really easy to miss that by just showing you the big chicken right away.
Right. Oh,
Having
absolutely.
action.
Absolutely. And I don't know if you guys saw the tweet, but I'm pretty sure Yalti, well, I know he tweeted about this, but I believe he tried to simulate all of these crumbs initially, but then ended up, he tweeted a picture or a video of him hand placing all of them so they'd be exactly what he wanted.
I know he did that for the food initially being poured into the bowl.
Oh, true, yeah.
Hand animated, but were these placed as well?
I just remember a video where he was like zoomed in like this, moving little crumbs, and then he would zoom out and be like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, that's what you're doing. So, but you're right. I remember the one in the food. Maybe there's something about Yalti that needs to be hand done. Maybe he's that kind of animator that like, the computer's never going to give me what I want. I've got to do it by hand. I respect that personally, but that's really funny.
Mean, it worked.
It totally worked. I wonder how. So one thing that I was trying to figure out how would I have gone about it was doing the lick. So when the crumbs are there and then there's a path and then they're gone inside that path, how would you go about that? Being more of you have more of the dynamic and simulation background than me.
Ooh. I would probably do it with like particles would be on the chicken, and then the tongue would be like a collider that doesn't necessarily collide, but it just kills the particles as it licks. Oh. And then you could probably have an emitter on like the tip of the tongue or something, flicking a couple off like as it goes up.
Yeah.
So it'd be like killing them and then like instantly regenerating them to throw them somewhere else.
Right. Right. That makes sense. Yeah. Okay. I would not have gone about it that way, but that makes sense.
How would you have done it? Like, I don't know how he would do it if he hand placed them all. I'm not sure.
Going off of that idea, my initial thought was he probably hand animated certain selections, like just disappearing out of the frame. But okay. I don't know that for sure. I honestly, I don't think I've ever done a task like this and animated it and rendered it where there's like a path, or like I think of fog on like a mirror where you see sometimes you'll just see like a handprint like go across fog, and that to me is like, oh, I'm glad I've not had to figure that one out because that seems complex. But yeah, I've never dynamic paint. That was the silver bullet that I was thinking initially, like, oh, well, just dynamic paint. That's the answer to this probably. Now the actual technical aspects of going into that, I don't think I've ever used dynamic paint. Pretty sad.
MJan said he talked about it at the Blender conference this year, which shame on me. I've watched most of the talks. I haven't gone through all of them yet, so I haven't seen Helties yet.
Gosh, I'm the same
but
way.
He talked about it at the BlenderCon. They were placed as they were, they were placed as they were floating particles, and his fix was to place by hand. So I guess some of the particles were floating and stuff.
Okay.
Which
that makes sense.
They're probably also like intersecting with each other, because at the moment the particle system is pretty, I don't know. When it comes to actually placing things, is a little rudimentary.
Yeah, true.
Okay. It's exactly where you need it.
Oh, interesting. Check this out. We have a disappearing crumb. So this frame, it's there. And then it's not.
You sure, like, maybe it just fell to the floor? Because it's kind of the same color as the floor.
I'm looking on the floor. Maybe it fell off of the plank, like, into the grass.
That could be.
Yeah, it's a pretty big distance that it travels from that frame to that frame, so maybe so. Thought I found an error, so I wouldn't be only positive.
I know, we can't have a film critique without finding one thing.
Right.
So far, there's not a lot.
Yeah,
not
true.
So much.
And I would want to avoid being critical for the sake of being critical. Like, there's a fine line to walk there. I guess between overly critical and overly fanboy. But if you have to be one, I guess I'd rather be a fanboy. Anyway, so yeah, there's probably a lot more to talk about. We were trying to stretch that into an hour, but since it being so short, we weren't sure how how that would go about. But that to say, like, we got about 10 minutes left. If you have last minute questions, we'll try and answer them. But there was one thing from Mark. Oh, he was saying there are chickens everywhere, though. Fair point in terms of like why we would be able to guess that a chicken is what's stomping on there. He's clearly much bigger than the other chickens, so the other chickens to me wouldn't make that big of a stomp. But also, like, what if the dad or whatever saw him do this and he was about to, I don't know, open up a can on Dixie? I don't know. There's maybe reason to believe there it could have been something else.
Zach said a course on camera work would be awesome, and I agree. That would be pretty sweet.
Mm-hmm.
And also, just to point out the camera work on this too, like it's really subtle,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not staying in the same spot the entire time. So it starts out and it kind of zooms in a little bit at the very beginning.
Yeah.
And it sort of has the like establishing shot feel.
Yeah, absolutely right.
Back. Zooms in a little bit. It's really soft, and then when the little chicken comes in, I think it pans over to the
you're right.
left a little bit.
Let's see what else.
So the camera is super subtle, but it works quite well, and it just follows the character, keeping the character in the middle, I think, most of the time.
Yeah, you're right. I've grown to appreciate like a very subtle camera. I'm a big David Fincher fan, and a lot of his camera moves are almost nothing, like tiny little rotations and, stuck in place a lot of the time. So
yeah. Well, it's cool to notice here that the camera always follows the, I don't know, whatever's the center point, or like the focal point, I guess, is always pretty much in the middle.
Yeah.
So here it's the dog character again. But if you go back a little bit, he was actually over to the side.
Oh, yeah.
And while the chicken came in, he was the focus.
Oh, you're right.
So it just shifts really subtly, but whatever's going on is always in the middle.
That is
for the most part
really,
in this.
Yeah, dude, you're totally right.
It's subtle, but it works.
And
it works beautifully.
Beyond even the chicken, I think we're supposed to really notice the crumbs. Like that's what ties the chicken in to like the story. He's him spitting them out. Yeah, absolutely. That's a. I'm gonna have to rewatch that with that in mind. Yeah, good call. Now we're supposed to pay attention to the chicken. I love it. Love it. But like that kind of thing, I can watch, 10, 20 times and never notice it. It's kind of sad that like good animation a lot of times is stuff you don't even notice. Good filmmaking.
Totally. Same with like the effects.
Yeah,
Just
true.
Effects,
True.
Don't even notice it.
Oh, wow. Cool. So maybe to wrap this up, hope you guys like the format. I'm pretty happy with the way that went and excited about what we're going to do in the future. What made me think about doing this was Elephant's Dream. I went back and watched that, and so I would love to revisit that. Particularly, I was impressed by how good the visuals looked, like the rendering quality, given how old it was. Animation's pretty rough, but I was impressed by what they were able to do back then. So we want to go and look at other films, obviously the Blender Foundation's films, but the Baby Olies, I think is what it's called. Look at that kind of stuff. All through the community, the Blender community, we want to look at films and take a look at the caliber of work that people are doing with Blender. Not sure what the next one will be, but if you have any suggestions, I appreciate you guys being active. But if there are other aspects of filmmaking that maybe we should look into more or something, but Rosa would be a good one. I'm not even aware of Rosa. Do you know the Rosa short?
It sounds familiar, but I don't think I can't picture it off the top of my head.
Let me look it up.
I'll have to look it up.
I wonder if it was made with Blender.
It says 2011, so it's an older one.
Huh.
Epic sci-fi.
I wonder if this is the one. Please let us know if this is the one. Anyway, we're gonna watch that one, take a look at it. But I guess one of the elements would be it has to be done with Blender. So as long as that is, it was done by one guy. Zach is saying.
That's impressive.
Yeah. I personally have always, that's been my single greatest aspiration for me by myself, is to make a short that's like 5 to 10 minutes long, all by myself.
Oh my God, 5 to 10 minutes?
Yeah.
I don't even think I could make this like 60-second thing by myself. Like,
dude, Rosa's 9 minutes, 9.5 minutes. Shoot, yeah. But that's why it's such a big goal, because you've heard of people like, I don't know, short films have led to bigger careers and stuff like that.
That's true.
So like Colin Levy was, I think he attributed his work on Sintel, directing Sintel, as getting him the job at Pixar, if I recall correctly. I mean, not the only thing. He's a talented guy and has a good work history. But like that was maybe the thing that broke him in, if I recall. It took a whole year to do that. Wow, I would expect longer than that personally. Like, I planned a short film in the last few years, and I was trying to block out like 5 years of time, of my free time, to be able to make it. It's not happened. But
no, I guess it depends on the quality. We haven't seen it yet, so.
True. But now you got me making video games, and I'm enjoying that a little more than short films. So, thanks.
That's true.
Awesome. Okay, cool. If there's no more questions,
I wish there were more like games that we could review too. That would be a lot of fun.
Well, Gonzo's trying to do that. He's trying to take the same format, apply it to games, and talk about games from like professional games that come out. But he said he's going to like contact the developers and see if that'll work out, and we can show that, because I don't know if the copyright stuff is on that. But
right.
Anyway, I love this. We watch a lot of films. There's obviously a lot of Blender shorts to do this way. And Mark, you picked up on it exactly, like why we wanted to do, a key reason to do this format is this is information that is difficult to present in tutorial format. And he said it was a good job doing it. So appreciate that we do want to teach by going over the technical stuff, hopefully shed light on the filmmaking process or on the Blender side of things. Definitely there's a element to teach through this. So
yeah, because tutorials are really good for, zooming in on particular things or like going through the process one by one. Mm-hmm. But zooming out and seeing it as a whole, I think, is really helpful sometimes.
Definitely.
So hopefully that filled in that gap a little bit.
Yeah, agreed. Cool. Well, we might wrap this up, and thank you for being here. We will do this again soon, especially if you guys liked it. And let's see what's coming up. I think my next stream is going to be based on lighting, like matching lighting. So I'm going to do that next week, where I'm going to pick one of my favorite examples and then recreate that in Blender. So that one should be fun. It's a thread in the community forums if you want to go look. Some members have been contributing, like Omar here, he's been contributing as well. Mikhail, as if I recall correctly. So anyway, that's what we're going to be doing next week. And until then, I will see you later. So thank you, Lampel, for doing this with me. I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you, everybody, for coming, and see you next time.